Hello.
Morning, Mr. Russell.
Morning, Mr. Liu.
And Kevin Hall. Kevin's a business consultant to Eliot and Iviewit. I'm an attorney. And we're calling in response to an email from Lori Cullen, if I pronounced that correct, from your Investor Relations Department.
Right.
And specifically, we're calling regarding a business proposition that was made to you folks by Iviewit and Eliot, and more generally regarding a technology that Iviewit and Eliot developed in part in conjunction with you folks, even at your offices in California. It's an encoding technology, and the business proposition is consistent with the NDAs, non-disclosure agreements, that you folks signed along with Iviewit to continue to roll this technology out and put it to use.
The unlicensing agreement that was signed.
Familiar with the background between Time Warner, AOL Time Warner, and Iviewit in the past?
Yeah. Yep.
Great.
Have we spoken, Mr. Liu? Excuse me. Mr. Liu? Have we spoken before?
No.
Okay. Because the email kind of indicated that we had conversed before, I wasn't sure how.
No, I don't think we spoke before.
Okay. So it might have just been a confusion in that email correspondence. Okay. Go ahead, Mark.
Okay, and I'm sorry, not only was there NDA signed, but as Eliot said, also licensing and encoding agreements. And what we'd like to do is, if you're the right person, to talk to you about this business proposal.
Sure.
Eliot, I have it in front of me, but if you want to lead with the details as to how it would play out.
Well, first of all, there's two factors that are I think pertinent to consider for you folks, and that is first is the technology infringement, which is pretty hands down stuff, in my view. The second is the more tricky part of this equation for everyone, which is the federal trillion-dollar lawsuit that's been legally related by Shura Shinlin to a whistleblower case that's got some absolutely amazing stuff came out in federal court and at a Judiciary Committee hearing that, slowly it's going to tentacle to the district attorneys, the U.S. attorneys that were involved in the cover-ups, etc. My belief is that Warner Brothers, who I entered into an agreement with, were good, upstanding folks who were doing a good business deal to license a good technology and get a most favored nation status back in, 2000. And,
That's why this is being presented to you and nobody else, because of the close work that was done together, because of who you are, the reputation you have, and this to play out.
and the friendship. That's probably the one word I would use is the friendships that were developed between me and your group, be it Greg Taggart and David Coulter, etc.
And the base, I guess, the background, not the background, but what we would propose in the agreement is to grant a worldwide exclusive license under the terms of the license to make, use, and sell the encoding, scaling, algorithm processes, and the compression processes, with some rights to sub-license it within your sphere of influence, and perhaps working in conjunction with Iviewit to the rest of the world, in essence.
Which, by the way, it almost sounds exactly where we were 10 years ago or so.
Exactly.
Prior to the malfeasances, which I don't believe that you were a central integral part to, and would hate to see you get tangled up in that when there is a more plausible, logical way out of this for everyone, which would only put us back to where we were when we originally inked a deal back then to do a, I was making you guys the most favored nation on a technology that, I think we all can see is used on a global scale daily with the potential for a lot of royalties from what I've heard from brilliant minds, I guess. And so, the deal would be back at that position. At, you guys coming in as partners in the technology, regling it out to whoever you want. It would knock out MPEG. I'm sure you're familiar with MPEG. I know the whole history back and forth between everybody here on that side. But it would convert, or MPEG would have to, basically pay a massive royalty to us, and I don't think they could survive without my technology. So my goal is to put them out of business if necessary. But for you folks, that would open up a huge market to monopolize almost that market to all the users, which would be everybody in the world using video or imaging.
Computers, digital cameras, cell phones, all of that. You folks would be.
And you guys already did the heavy lifting 10 years ago and have validated it, and validated it through your engineering groups at the highest levels. And, I don't know what happened with AOL, and I don't know how you're tied back up with them or not tied back up with them. But right about that point in history, my deal got confusing. And it's been so for several years. So that's where I think Mark's trying to get it, is to back to a reasonable business deal, which would then pull you out of, well, first it would straighten up your balance sheet for FASB so that the past years of accounting that we are claiming fraud to the FCC would be rectified, and you would be able to say exit strategy was we solved the licensing issue, we're paying the royalty, and everything's hunky-dory with Bernstein et al. On the legal side, obviously, if anybody was involved in criminal activities, there isn't much I can do about that. They very well could be arrested. I'm not the guy in charge of that.
We're talking about the rest of the world.
On the civil side of, well, you right now, because of the MPEG relations and all that, and Kenneth Rubenstein and the relation with Warner Brothers, et cetera, with Rubenstein, Proskauer, et cetera, you guys could get very well tripped up in a, trillion-dollar nightmare suit that has, a federal judge called it murder. I'm just calling it a car bombing of, but it's got astronomical liabilities, both criminally and civilly for people. And it's, slowly moving up. It isn't going away, after 10 years. I think everybody sees that it's there. But this, in my view, has been I made the calls to Warner Brothers and AOL and everybody to try to do this on friendly terms. But what I think it can be done is almost an insurance policy. First of all, obviously if you're doing business with me and things are hunky-dory tomorrow, your name's out of the civil suit other than as witnesses, which, obviously I can't help that part either. And so there were witnesses to certain events that would, that would have to be carved, that can be accessed. But other than that, I would obviously have no civil action that I would want to take going forward at that point, so I would remove you from any of that as far as I could, and as far as I can going forward testifying, to what I knew about the people who I had done business with at Warner Brothers who were stand-up guys. And so,
Let me just ask a couple questions. What, just to unpack what you said, you mentioned your letter to the SEC, and I'm curious to hear more detail about what you say is wrong with our balance sheet.
okay, under FASB rules, this this is our interpretation, but it's pretty straightforward that when you have a contingent liability, even if this wouldn't even be contingent, I don't believe anymore, where you have a liability and infringement, even if you haven't been sued yet for the infringement by the inventor, but you're infringing, which we have documentary evidence from your own internal email correspondences and a lot more showing that. What FASB says is you should be carrying that liability on the book, which I've noted your auditors already, but they might have other problems with this whole larger scheme. But nonetheless, what we've noticed you of is you have a lawsuit that you're involved in and have knowledge of your status as a litigant in many potential litigations over the next 20 years of the patents, which haven't even started yet because they're in suspension, which makes this even longer suffering for everybody involved. Who's, if you're going to try to carry it on your balance sheet, you're going to have to report the liability as both a lawsuit liability, contingent or not. You're going to have your auditors look at it and see the paperwork and what you signed and how much you'd owe and what your involvement is in any criminal activity, etc. And so that would all have to be disclosed. And I see putting it as a liability is probably smarter, because putting it as a contingent, everybody's going to dig through this, and it gets ugly, starting with car bombings and RICO. And RICO, where I'm going to sweep everybody who's involved assets. I'm not going for anything less than personally bankrupting every single one of the people, including any dead people like Judith Gay's husband out in New York. I'll dig you up to get what you took from me. So in the end, you'd have to report all that, and that's going to start everybody, your auditors, your outside counsels, etc., putting their sticker of this is not a liability on it, which I don't think they can do, because factually there's just too much factual basis behind the legal that's going on. Now, because it's tied up in a whistleblower case in a federal court where there's been exposure of fascinating things, I mean, I don't know. If you guys want to, play that game, I'm more than happy. So I notified the SEC of that portion. There is another portion that also is, equally damning in this situation for you, which is that you should have been reporting the infringement since the time that you knew you were infringing, which is 10 years now. And it's, if you just imagine for a minute an injunction against you for my technology, all your websites would close down on video tomorrow. Okay?
Right.
Okay. So,
You're saying that we should have been disclosing.
Oh, please. You've got signed agreements. You have people saying you're infringing on non-disclosure agreements. You have, and by the way, you did all that in good faith and stuff. So, who am I to hold that against you? Because of what happened with my attorneys and some crazy lunatics who decided to, become thieves of patents. I don't think you guys were the integral player in the scheme. I think, whatever happened after I got caught in that mess, what you did was you couldn't just walk away from the deal and then fail to report that you're infringing on a technology that if I slap an injunction on you tomorrow and it goes through, you're dead. Meaning it's over. Your cable company loses 75% of its bandwidth in the morning.
I think, yes.
Okay, the second question I had was, just the fact that question we made reference your lawsuit kicking you on.
Yes, sir.
Am I right that Time Warner's we're not a defendant in that case?
Well, you got to look deep, but as you'll see, I've sought to seek amend to add in right from the start all of the non-disclosure and licensing agreement and MPEG licensors and licensees into the complaint. So soon you will be, unless you ink a deal with me. And you have enough knowledge of your placement in that lawsuit as to what's going on with what we posted to the SEC, and I've given you notification that this is future litigation for the rest of your natural life. I won't stop hunting, and neither will any of the other injured people and parties involved in this for the next 20 years.